Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earl, and here are today's topics. Arsenal go back to the top of the league, winning 3-0 over Brentford. Heung-min Son comes off the bench to score a hat-trick as Spurs thrash Leicester 6-2. Haaland scores again in Man City's easy win over Wolves, and we'll round up the other games in the Premier League this weekend. That's what we've got coming up in today's show.
We got some big news for our viewers and listeners with the Premier League being back. Premier League Mornings Live is heading to Philadelphia, and we've partnered with Sports Engine to give your family a VIP experience on October the 15th and 16th. Enter now for a chance to win 4 VIP tickets with airfare and hotel included. All you've got to do is share a photo or video of your child's team or their soccer skills to Instagram using hashtag MyPLMornings, hashtag MyPLMorningssweepstakes, and tag and follow at NBC Sports Engine and at NBC Sports Soccer. Pack your bags fast. The winner is going to be announced on October the 10th, and you'll join Rebecca, me, Mr. Mustoe, Tim Howard, and all the crew at the FanFest. Terms and conditions may apply. Okay, my friend, it was a kind of shortened weekend, obviously, with the Queen's funeral happening tomorrow and police and logistics playing their part. We did get a game at the Community Stadium at Brentford, and actually I think it's called the GTEC Stadium now, isn't it, or something like that?
I think it might be, yeah.
All right, yeah, I think it's GTEC Stadium. But anyway, Arsenal returned 12 months after getting a mauling, we would say. Remember, first game of the season, Friday night, they got mauled 2-0 at the Community Stadium, as was then. Very different performance, very different result. Some are saying, Rob, very different Arsenal.
Well, it must be. I mean, the proof is there to see. I mean, watching the game, Rob, and half-time and afterwards, I was very disappointed with Brentford. But you're right. It is a different Arsenal now. There's a maturity that we've talked about. There's an improvement. The squad is better. The team, the 11 is better from a year ago, given what they've done in the market. And it was a total performance, Rob. Total performance. Wherever you look, the goalkeeper from a back four that was organised, as they've been. They were super strong against very aggressive attacking players. You all know about Ivan Toney with his call-up for England, the national team, etc. I mean, they're a big, powerful side, but Arsenal dealt with them surprisingly easily. I thought the football was clean, like sharp, moved the ball through the lines, kept it, controlled the game in possession, right from the kickoff, by the way, Rob. They had the ball for like 2 minutes, I think, after the kickoff of the game. And the finishing was excellent as well. I mean, there was nothing to fault it. It was so good. I'm like, well, surely Brentford can do more. So let me throw it back to you, Rob, on that. Okay. Of course, we're going to give Arsenal a ton of credit. I've just outlined why they were so great. It was a total performance. Yeah. Was I mean, and by the way, I'll say this before I let you jump back in, Rob. Thomas Frank afterwards said, I thought we played well, which I was, I'm like, wow. So Arsenal, maybe they are the real deal.
Well, isn't that an interesting contrast to the last time, the game last season when Ivan Toney's putting up, it was a kick around with Arsenal, where the manager's talking about getting in the faces. When Brentford play well, Rob, and Brentford can play different styles. They can play through the back. They can be a little bit direct. They can press when they need to, and they're well organised. But they've got to be high octane. They've got to be in your face, and they've got to play at a tempo. And when they don't, Rob, they're nowhere near that team. And now, I don't know if all that kind of, he's come out and said he thinks Arsenal, John Frank said he thinks Arsenal are title contenders. Now, I think that's going a little bit too far, personally. But what we are seeing, Rob, and I'll kind of chuck it back to you, in the way that Arsenal dealt with Brentford, and Brentford at home are not going to be an easy game for anyone.
Let me just stop you there, Rob. Before you chuck it back to me, were Brentford, was it Brentford light? Did Arsenal get, or give me an answer on that before you throw it back to me. Like, is it all credit to Arsenal?
Brentford, with that argument, it wasn't I didn't think it was a great Brentford day because I didn't think they played with the intensity, the speed, and high octane football that is their mark. But Rob, I think we need to the credit has to. You have to look at Arsenal's side in that when Man City do this to teams, we go, wow. when Liverpool have done this to teams, we go, wow, maybe Arsenal are, and this was where I was saying about, are Arsenal possibly going next level where they are starting to restrict teams, to inhibit teams in a way that some of the big boys have done in the past. Their football now is grooved, as you said. Everybody knows what they're doing. Let's remember this was without Zinchenko and without Odegaard. Two key players for them in recent weeks, Rob. Didn't matter a jot. 3 goals from 3 new signings this summer who've come back into the football club. It just feels to me, Rob, that Arsenal have taken a big step.
Well, they have, and it's kind of like when you sort of talk, when you're kind of talking there and like, have they reached a whole new level? It's like, yeah, have they? Like, have they reached a point where they're going to win a lot of games easily? Because I think you can tell champions of leagues and stuff by how easy they win games. And, Arsenal have won a lot of games, not just the start of the season, but into last season as well. But maybe is this the new norm, Rob, where they're going to dominate? They're going to dominate a lot of games against a lot of the teams. I know they lost against Manchester United, but I think we all and most people thought they still played pretty well. It just wasn't their day. There was other reasons for that defeat. But yeah, I mean, maybe this is, and it's obviously the job of Mikel Arteta is to maintain this level. And we've said many times that the Arsenal consistency is what, the young players maturing, improving, which they learned so much over last season, the amount of minutes they played. We're seeing it. We're seeing not so much with the I'm talking about bravery on the ball and showing their qualities most weeks now in terms of possession and keeping the ball. They've got this lovely diamond in midfield they go to. It's very, very grooved, very well organised. They're kind of lucky, touch wood for them with injuries, etc. Right now, you mentioned there's a couple of players out. But yeah, I think that's a good thought is, are they a level that's not that far away from City and Liverpool with the way that they're playing? They sit on the top of the league table, Rob. Like, we're going to go international break, 7 games played, 18 points, 17 goals for, 7 against, 6 wins, 1 loss for them, of course, against Manchester United. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the question, mate, is how good are they?
I thought today what we saw, and I thought you made a really interesting point about Everton. We'll talk about them later, about, always a little bit playing under pressure, since Frank's been at the football club. And I got a sense with Arsenal, Rob, it's the opposite. I take Granit Xhaka as a great example. I think he was captain for the day. The pass he gives to Jesus
goal, the header.
For the header, and Jesus goes and shines his boot, and a lovely kind of camaraderie is building, which does happen with successful teams anyway. But I just thought these days in his life when Granit Xhaka would have played that ball safe, would have got it down and give it to a fullback, or got it down. But I think because of where they are and how, I think it's an illustration of the feeling in the football club, that he's now taking a look and looking forward and pinging a lovely ball over the top, scooping the ball in, and Jesus is in there and finishes. And I think it's an illustration. Vieira comes in today's first goal, Rob.
He looked good.
Look neat and tidy, and you're thinking Odegaard to come. Smith Rowe, I know, has got a few issues, but with injuries, but can come back. The other thing with Arsenal, Rob, and it's just one of those mad thoughts as I was watching the game today. How many left-footed players in that team, by the way? It's the most left-footed team I've ever seen in the history of Premier League football. And they all can do a bit and they all can play. But I just get the sense, Rob, there's a mindset difference. There's a freedom in your head. And you know what it's like when you're battling for results, you're not sure things are going to come, to the difference where actually we're pretty good today. And I just feel like that's where Arsenal are right now.
I think it's an interesting point with Granit Xhaka. I mean, we could have a whole podcast talking about him and how he's kind of changed himself. He maybe is the mental kind of point that the team are at. We've seen him lose his head, get frustrated, lunge in for penalties, give red cards away. He's a different person, maybe because the team's so much better. And, he doesn't show any of those frustrations. He doesn't look like an angry man.
Maybe he was frustrated, Rob, with some of the other stuff that was going on.
Yeah, and he couldn't stop it coming out in the way that he was playing, the way the frustrations that we saw. I mean, it was a brilliant interview. I think it was a Players' Tribune, Rob, where I read a lovely long piece about Granit Xhaka. And it was really eye-opening about how he cares for Arsenal Football Club and how it was It's hurting him so much.
Yeah,
With all the tough times that he had, with taking his shirt off and the red cards and the booing from the Arsenal fans. What a man, by the way, to stay fully committed and wanting to turn it around and wanting to prove himself to the Arsenal fans. And now, and fair play to Mikel Arteta as well, Rob, wasn't it? I mean, other managers might have cast him aside or tried to move him on. Arteta, as always, put him in the lineup, has always stressed his importance. And to be fair to the player now, he's doing exactly what I guess Mikel Arteta knew he could do in a very level-headed way. Well done, Granit Xhaka.
Yeah, he's looking like the guy that I think the others are looking up to. Maybe Thomas Partey, they hope to be that guy. Injuries have not helped him.
Fit again today.
Fit again today. Centre-backs are still growing as a partnership, but young players, Ben White. So, lots of good things for Arsenal today. And we can't go past missing a 15-year-old
we can't, no.
Playing football in the Premier League, Rob. Ethan Nwaneri, I think he pronounced his name. It's 15 years, 181 days, the youngest player ever, Mr. Musto. I mean, I can remember at 15 years of age, I was probably doing double maths, playing football at lunchtime and playing, trying to play school under-16 soccer.
Yeah, I was playing cricket for the team. I was playing rugby for the team. I was kicking the ball around. I mean, it's remarkable. Like, really? I mean, he's got to go to school tomorrow, isn't he? I mean, he's still at school. I mean, he's not a pro. He can't be a pro at 15, Rob, can he? I mean, he can't be getting paid.
Schools.
I mean, he was a schoolboy for him.
He wasn't born, was he? He wasn't born when they moved to the Emirates, I believe. That was the start. I mean, I was looking in my sock drawer. I've got socks that are 16 years old. I've got socks in my sock drawer that are old.
Somebody said today, Rob, as well, that he was 12 when COVID started. He was 12. I mean, it's crazy.
It's incredible, but it's another sign to that academy, and I know he's got some England under-17 caps, and he's already making a mark with the under-21s, and again, just that academy, Rob, we talked about it before, the ability to bring quality players through is also going to be a part of what Arsenal do this season.
I mean, in summarising where the club is at, what a turnaround. What a turnaround. We're seeing young kids coming through the academy playing, brilliant recruitment, the team playing with a style and an intensity that the fans want to see. The results are there. They're sitting top of the Premier League. It's a blimmin', well done to this club and to Edu and Arteta for producing this.
And ownership, Rob, in fairness. I think ownership deserves a little bit of credit. They've had a lot of stick along the way, and sometimes quite rightly, but they've backed the manager, they've backed Arteta, they've backed Edu, they've made some big decisions that I'm sure the ownership had to agree with. They're getting rid of Lacazette and Aubameyang and freshen it up. It was a gamble, but it looks like it's a gamble that's been well taken, and Arsenal look really interesting. Really looking forward to them at the moment, Rob, and exciting to watch again, aren't they, Arsenal? It's not one of those where after every game you're scratching your head and we're disappointed in Arsenal. I think we're starting to see the Arsenal that Mikel Arteta visualising, the Arsenal that Arsenal fans have been hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, brilliant. Really, really great stuff. Nothing negative to say about Arsenal. Like, it's all good for them. Should we move it on, my friend?
To the new White Hart Lane Stadium. We got 6 goals for Tottenham. We got a hat-trick for Heung-min Son. We got Leicester leading the game at one point. We got Brendan Rodgers in all kinds of trouble. It was a bit of a weird game, this one, mate. Entertaining for lots of reasons as a neutral, but it was a bit weird.
Well, I don't know where to start. I don't even know where to finish it. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Yeah, it was a crazy game because Leicester looked pretty good with the ball and cut through Spurs many, many times, scored a couple of goals. Tielemans and Maddison with a lovely Maddison finish into that far corner.
I thought he played well, by the way, Maddison. I thought he played
Leicester
well.
played well. Thing is, at the moment, they've got zero durability. They want to play their way. They want to get on the ball. They don't want to defend. They don't want to work hard as a team or as individuals to try and... I mean, that being said, for like 60 or 70 minutes... before, I guess, Son came into the game. I mean, it was tight. It was kind of tight, and you're like, wow.
Bentancur,
So, I mean, the upshot is that Spurs were a little more stretched and vulnerable than I think the manager would like to see. And I know the 6-2, and we'll get on to the plus size, but I think I was certainly was a little surprised at how we talked up this foundation and defensive shape of Conte, and he's been grooving it over the pre-season. They got kind of pulled around a lot, Rob. Now they lost, of course, in European football to Sporting away on Tuesday in the Champions League, and conceded another 2 goals here. Before we get on to the good stuff, is there cause for concern that this rock-solid unit, didn't quite look so rock-solid?
There absolutely is. And again, I was looking at a similar thing, like today. Leicester had 16 shots, Rob. 11 shots on target. Yeah. 11 looks at your goal.
Yeah.
I mean, look, remember Lloris come up with a couple of big saves with the game, I think, at 2-2. He's had the Daka one, which is the one-handed, and he saved one with his foot.
Yeah, he did, from close range.
He made a couple of big saves that might have made this very different. Now, Antonio Conte's teams are not supposed to give up that amount of shots,
any sort
that
of
amount
shots.
Of control. No, looks at goal. And that foundation isn't right. So if he's going to continue to play this way, Rob, it's going to be a gamble, and they're going to concede goals, and they're going to have to outscore teams, which isn't what he wants. They need to tighten some of those things up to be able to play the Conte way that's going to get them the success that has won him silverware throughout his career, Rob. But, I thought the same thing. I thought at times we saw Spurs, when they've got possession, can look really threatening and all the things we know. But times when Spurs haven't got possession, a Leicester team that's decent, but at the moment having a struggle, had many looks at goal. And this could have been very different. This could have only looked 4-3 to Leicester, and Spurs wouldn't have been able to argue it. Sonny hadn't come on and done his thing.
One position change of the manager for Spurs. Yeah. Davinson Sanchez for Christian Romero. Now, we've noticed in Davinson Sanchez before, that he's a little hot-headed. He's a little eager to get to do his thing defensively. A great example of a player that just got frustrated in a wide spot. He runs back, Rob, and makes the challenge. Why did he play? Why that's the Rick?
Well, I've got to be honest. What was the game last week when Spurs played?
Fulham at home.
Yeah, Romero didn't play very well. He really didn't play very well, mate. I was watching the game, and he missed some challenges. Normally. Yeah, he got done down that side for one of the goals. Yeah. We've seen him quite aggressive. We've seen him athletic and want to go toe-to-toe. Hasn't quite looked at his game. So whether that, was a little kick up the backside, putting Sanchez in. But what you do know with Sanchez is he is hot-headed. And if something's not going right or his emotional control sometimes, I feel is at risk. And if you get near the box, it's one of them where I push it past him and wait for the challenge. Because he's always going to lunge, Rob. And that's, again... He's just an individual example of what doesn't really happen with Conte's defence. Yeah. Doesn't really happen with his team. They're solid citizens, aren't they? They're people you can rely on. They put their foot in. They defend well. They body up people rather than making tackles and go to ground. And I just think there's still a little bit of tweaking to do in that back line. And you're right. He also played Perisic, didn't he, Rob, off the right-hand side.
Which didn't go very well. Which did not go well.
He brought him up. He had to bring him off.
Well, he switched him. Yeah, first of all, he switched him to the other side. Harvey Barnes was ripping him.
Yeah, and then he was still getting done a little bit. I think Justin coming down that side, and he decided, you know what, we got Royal on and Sessegnon in, and Perisic didn't look too happy actually when it came off. Had a little shake of the head.
Do you think it's another example, Rob, of we look at this league every week and maybe take it for granted the pace of it. We know about Ivan Perisic and we think, well, he's going to be a good player. He knows Conte. He plays in a wing back position. And you forget about he's kind of over 30 and it's really, really fast and it's getting younger, this league now. Do you think Perisic's effectiveness at Spurs could be affected by the pace of the league and in wide areas, the amount of tricky wingers and quick players that he might struggle against?
It's a good question. Now, I have to admit to this point, I've been reasonably impressed with him, Robin. And obviously, once he gets in the attacking third, he's done well. He's got two, can go right and left foot. I think it might be a case of getting used to it. I think he's experienced. I think he's good at using his body and stopping people. I mean, the problem you get in this league, as you say, is one-on-one. If somebody's quicker and more powerful than you and he can run past you, you've got a problem. But I just sense when Spurs have got the right setup and there's a bit of protection and he's in the right spaces, I still think he's good. He's good business. for Spurs. And listen, he's going to have those days where he's going to come up against some of those really quick guys. And that might be a day when the manager decides he needs a little bit more athleticism, goes for a Sessegnon maybe, rather than Perisic. Still don't sense he's totally happy with those wing-back roles either, mate. No. This chopping and changing makes me think he still hasn't quite made his mind up how this pair works in this system.
Well, on that note, Rob, he did make changes. And before we get on to Heung-min Son too much, of course, he came into the game as an attacking player. But there was a system switch as well, which I thought was interesting. Yves Bissouma came into the game. One of the forwards, was it Kulusevski or Richarlison? I think it might have been Richarlison. Anyway, they ended up...
Richarlison came off,
first. Yeah, so they changed the midfield. And it's interesting because I listened to a press conference of Antonio Conte saying that Yves Bissouma was the one new player that was struggling to understand how did he say it? Like the tactics of my football. He said in central midfield is the hardest position to understand my football, he said, Rob. So it kind of makes sense why Bissouma struggled to get in. Yeah. And maybe it makes sense why when he does come into the game, it's in a different shape. I don't think he trusts Bissouma yet to do that defensive number 6, the two holding players there. He doesn't trust him. So it's a system switch. So 5-3 in the middle, with him being one of the number 8s. And then Heung-min Son comes on and plays with Harry Kane, Rob, in the front too. Now, we've seen this maybe the season before last when the two of them linked up brilliantly well together, and we saw it immediately. Now, again, whether we'll see more of this shape where you don't see Kulusevski, you don't see Richarlison, because that's the two systems he plays, either 3 forwards or 2 forwards. Now, he's got so many forward players, I think he'll continue with the 3. But Son and Kane together, coming back together, playing, was pretty amazing. And, okay, Heung-min Son, obviously, being dropped was a story at the start of the game. He ended up being a story at the end of the game, Rob, with his impact and his hat-trick.
Well, I mean, what was it? I think 13-minute hat-trick, quality goals written all over the place. It's an interesting one with Bissouma because I kind of feel like Spurs could benefit from some of his attributes in that team.
I do too.
But it means if you're going to drop a Kulusevski or Richarlison, that takes a lot of that attacking counter-attack threat. As good as Son and Kane are, when you've got 3 guys who can almost pin a back 4 back if they're looking to counter-attack.
Yeah, it's a very different way of doing it.
It's very different, isn't it? And it's just whether Bissouma can build a trust of Conte to feel that he goes in maybe with Bentancur, with Højbjerg as a 2 rather than play as a 3. So maybe something for him to think about. But yeah, interesting position. And certainly Son comes on and listen, we know he hasn't scored. Wouldn't be happy sitting on the bench. He comes off 30 minutes. He makes his point. Brilliant hat trick. Game's done from Leicester's point of view, and a scoreline that slightly flatters Tottenham. You'd have to say in the full entity of the game, but that's what they've got, Rob. When you've got 4 forwards like they've got, so it's a great bonus to have, especially with the amount of subs you can use now in Premier League football. You can almost go 60 minutes with a certain 2 or 3 and then change it up with half an hour to go.
Just before we move on to Leicester, Rob, I do find Spurs a pretty funny team to try and pin down or analyse right now. I mean, they're
not sure, right? I'm still not sure.
I guess the bottom line is, for me, is that I feel there's so much more to come. I don't feel like they're playing as well as they can play. Now, I know there's some restriction on the way that he wants them to play, and it's kind of defensive-minded first for the most part, though I think in the last couple of games they've tried to be more expansive. But I just think there's more to come from them. They're sat in 3rd place in the league, Rob, behind Arsenal and Manchester City on the same points as Man City after 7 games played. It's got to be a good sign, hasn't it, Rob? That there's more to come, yet they're still sat in a good spot.
And they're still right up there. Yeah, 2nd spot in the league. It's not more to come in like they're mid-table and we're saying, well, they've got to kick on, a Villa or Everton or one of those teams. You think, So yeah, I think again making the most of what he's got, improving the bits that we thought would be more Antonio Conte type of work. But listen, they're probably a better watch because of some of those frailties than we would have been, if everything's right. But huge game, obviously, coming up North London Derby when we get back to action. Yes. It will be a good test for both those teams again, won't it? Be a good measurement of, okay, where are we both? Moving
on to Leicester City, Rob. Now, just quickly, I'll just kind of talk about how I thought the game went. We'll speak about the manager maybe after that. But I mean, it was a really funny game. I'm looking at my notes now from the game. Right before halftime, I've written down, where has this Leicester been? Because they kind of look good. Pass the ball really well, cut through, got their couple of goals. The set pieces conceding, it must be driving everybody concerned with the club crazy that they keep conceding goals. Again, 2 set pieces, I think, in the first half were the goals against. They're such a soft touch at times defensively, yet when they get on the ball and start knocking it around, they look pretty good. Now, at this point, Brendan Rodgers has to address that. He has to address it. And the second half, again, they had opportunities, but then starts to get away from them. They try playing out of bad spots. They give the ball away. They get pressed. Bentancur presses and scores a really good goal. They take the ball off of James Justin. Heung-min Son scores his right footer into the top corner. I mean, in terms of where they are right now, mate, 22 goals against after 7 Premier League games is the worst. It's the highest amount of goals conceded of any team. Ever. 1 point after 7. First before we put the manager kind of prospects for him, how did you see the game from their point of view, Rob?
So I want to go to a point that we talked of a little bit off air in studio when we've worked together, and it's something that's out there. And I think, by the way, I've got to be straight to the point. They've got at best a championship goalkeeper in the net, Rob. It's nowhere near good enough. No. Absolutely nowhere near good enough. He doesn't look physically right. He doesn't look like he's got the speed. He doesn't look like the power when he dives. And he's got a back four around him who are on eggshells with what he's going to do and how he's going to do. So that's a starting point. But that's something the manager brought him in, knew him from Liverpool, Danny Ward we're talking about. That has to be resolved pretty quickly, mate. That has to be resolved pretty quickly. They need to go and find another top-class goalkeeper.
They do.
And put him in the net. There are times this team show you, this is where I am with the team, and it leads to Brendan Rodgers. The time this team shows you how good a players are. And when you look through the team, Rob, back for Castagna, Evans, Fass and Justin, and Didi sitting in front of them. Maddison, Tielemans, Dewsbury Hall, Barnes, underneath Daka.
I know.
Mid-table football at worst all day long.
Yeah.
So something's wrong. So this team have shown us when they got the ball, they can play, Rob. Yeah. There's no real drive and appetite when they lose a ball to stop things happening.
Correct. Yeah.
Turnovers happen. We did a piece the other week on the dashboard. Many times turnovers in midfield and people just go streaming to it. Another occasion today. Yep. The set piece thing is something, as a coach, it's embarrassing. You can do something too. So all those things are some of the harder things. Get on the ball, play, be technically good. Yeah. They can do. They are some of the harder things to get out of a team. So it unfortunately the spotlight has to fall on the man in charge of, and that's Brendan Rodgers. And Brendan used to be the coach that made players better. He's now become the coach who's making players worse. Some of these players are not playing anywhere near their capabilities that we know. We've seen them winning FA Cups, going to the big boys and having an edge about them and showing how good they are. Some of that's gone. And I don't know why and I don't know where, but Brendan Rodgers is under pressure to get it back pretty quickly.
He looks spent at Leicester City. He looks like it's over or it's about to be over. I got a quote here, Rob, from him after the game. Brendan Rodgers was asked if he'll be manager next game. Here's what he says. I don't know, to be honest. Whatever is, assuming to the owners, decision is, I'll always respect it. And he goes on to say, the owners will do what they feel they need to do. I'm not daft. I know football. There's not much fighting talk there, Rob. It's almost like,
That's not like, I'll turn this around, is it?
No, it's not like, I hope they stick with me. I'm doing everything I can every single day. We're working hard to fix this problem. We're going to, he's got, I think my understanding is right. He's got a long contract, my friend. He's got a long contract. And when a manager gets fired, he's due pay up. Resigning, walking away, you don't get anything.
Definitely none of that.
No, I'm not saying there's anything like that involved, but it's going to be an expensive decision if the club decide to fire him. Now, all I would say, international break, my friend, we know what can sometimes happen. I think their next game, by the way, is not Nottingham Forest on the Monday when we get back after international break, on the Monday night at home. Leicester versus Nottingham Forest. Now, if he's still in charge at that point, which I really don't know if he will be, you're starting to get into games where this is must win. This is must win because you start to look at the maths. You start to look at the maths of the league table and like, wow, they got to win a lot. I mean, the games are going to start running down. They played 7 already, got 1 point with a pretty bad goal difference. So,
and if you don't beat the Forest of the world, where are you going to get your wins from?
Right.
That starts to be the question.
And it's obvious, Rob, isn't it? And it's obvious that the team is better than. It's obvious the team is better than this.
And history doesn't go well for Brendan because, again, little research mate tells me October international break 2015. He got sacked as Liverpool manager.
Yeah.
FSG made that decision in the international break in 2015.
Does it feel in some ways like it's similar, like it kind of got to a point where...
Is this the reason, again...
Yeah, we know where you're going.
Is this the reason we've said he's not the top 6 guy? He's always going to be mentioned and always going to be around. We're always going to see the good sides and talk up, and we know what a pure coach he is. But is there something missing in his locker, in his DNA, that makes him a top 6 manager?
Well, I think that's the nitty gritty, and we've got to say, I mean, he's won the FA Cup with Leicester City. He's done great work in his career, but I would like it to this, Rob. He's like a trend manager. When he goes in, he's a project manager as well. So he goes in and things are going well. He's trending up. He looks $1 million. On a downtrend, which he had at Liverpool, I don't think he can get out of a downtrend. I don't think he can get out of a bear market. Things are going down for him. I don't know whether he's turned it around ever. As if like I've done my best with this project. We had some good times, and now it's kind of coming to an end. That's what I feel like. And I haven't, we talked about Glass sitting with him. It gets to a certain point, and then it slowly starts to unravel a little bit and fall away. I think this is exactly what we're seeing again from a talented manager that's done a lot of good things, but when it starts going downhill, he can't stop that momentum. And I feel like this is only going in one direction. Listen, maybe we're wrong, mate. And when they come back, he wins a game against Nottingham Forest, and they get out of this, and he survives this slump. But my money would be on that he doesn't survive this downturn in belief and intensity from his squad that he's paid to motivate.
He's going to need a bit of vote of confidence from the ownership group first to be given the chance. I don't know. I kind of think he might have a little credit, just a touch of credit in the bank.
Yeah.
That might just give him
another opportunity to pull through.
Yeah, 2-3 more games, like you say, because I think it's a kind of club where if you can get one win, put a little run together, all of a sudden things could look a little bit different. But no, test for Brendan Rodgers, different kind of test, and we'll see how this one plays out. Let's go to Wolverhampton Wanderers, where it wasn't particularly a great test for Manchester City. I think up after 55 seconds with Jack Grealish, and then kind of coasted, I would say, to a pretty comfortable 3-0 win against Wolves. They were down to 10 men. A crazy challenge by Nathan Collins at centre-back on Jack Grealish. City winning 3-0. Did we learn anything more? Was it just another one of those days?
Well, I think we learned that Jack Grealish will benefit from that goal he scored. I think there might have been past games of City where he's not in the centre of the box for that cross to come through from De Bruyne. De Bruyne, I mean, we didn't learn anything about him because we know he's amazing. He was amazing in this game as well. But Grealish made a really good run inside when you might have expected Erling Haaland to score that. I mean, it was so easy. It was so comfortable, 11v11, that I think when they had a man sent off, I mean, City went down to like 20% energy and intensity and desire to go on and win the game. They rested, they rotated, they brought players in. Super easy. Jack Grealish is probably the story. He's scoring. Yeah. Pep talked about him before and after the game because he was a story. Like he's back in the side.
There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk this week about him, wasn't there? Like there was. Goals, assists, what's he brought to City, and Pep was very strong in defending him and talking about what he brings to the team and how other players have been better in there. So it was quite timely from that point of view. Grealish getting the goal, celebration between the two, the manager and the player towards the end of the game. I thought was quite telling, really, that I think Jack's really well liked as well in that group. I get the sense he's well liked by the manager and by the players, and they all kind of want him to do a little bit better.
Did you see the? So we were lucky enough, Rob, and I don't know whether you caught this because of all the stuff going on, but we actually had a two-way with Jack Grealish after that game, where we all had a chance to ask him a question, and I thought he made some pretty interesting answers. I asked him whether his game is changed or is changing because of Erling Haaland. And he said it kind of is, and all of us have a little bit changed the way that we play because of this guy. And the more interesting part was how he said how Erling Haaland is as a man and as a player. He said, I love him to bits. Like, everybody loves him. He's got such desire to score goals and do well, but he's such a great team person as well. I mean, he went above and beyond to stress how fun it is to play with him, but what a great person he is. Now, we've heard that from Pep about saying he's a great person to coach. So on top of everything that he does on the field, he's got the desire, he's got the attitude, he's got the temperament. We saw in a game before, somebody's trying to push him, pull him. I think it was Mings, wasn't it, against Villa?
Yeah.
He's ticking so many boxes, and with the goal scoring and everything else, that it just adds to the picture of this guy could be phenomenal. I'm talking longer term here, not just we're seeing it. He's phenomenal right now, end of. But this could continue. He could break many, many records, given what we're seeing and what we're hearing from different people that work very closely with him.
It's really important. It's a really important point as well. I mean, 11 Premier League goals in 7 Premier League games. I think it's 14 in all comps at the moment. I mean, his club numbers that I saw somewhere, Rob, is it 100 goals in 99 appearances since he left Salzburg? I mean, it's an incredible record. But it's interesting you talk about what Jack was saying and the conversation about Haaland, because as you were talking, I just thought that's really interesting, because I think we touched on you have to be a certain person and personality to be able to walk in that dressing room, change the way that some players are playing, who are established internationals, have an effect on the dressing room, be liked, because usually sometimes big players can come in on big money, Rob. You talk about your Ravanellis and people, and sometimes they can upset the balance. Yeah. But also, Rob, the biggest thing that I've just thought, as you were saying that, and Jack said, is the desire. Because Manchester City are champions. It's a dressing room full of champions. Yep. But you get a guy who comes in who's hungry, who's determined, who wants to break records, who wants to win cups, who wants to win golden boots. It kind of gives everybody a bit of a lift again, doesn't it?
Totally.
It freshens the whole thing up. And I just wonder if that was why Haaland's been an important signing for Pep, in that, not just what we see on the pitch and the goals, which are phenomenal, but that little bit of chemistry in that dressing room where he's driving everybody on to more success.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it's happening. We always talk about trying to improve the squad when you're winning. They've done it in all the different reasons. I mean, just finally on them, Rob, and maybe we'll touch on Wolves. I want to get your take on Diego Costa, by the way, coming back to the Premier League. I just think they are the outstanding team right now. And I know, what are they? I know they're, I guess, technically 1 point off the top of the league table, but my goodness, they're in a good, what do they call it? A good moment right now. That they really are. Let's just switch it quickly to Wolves, Rob. Quick comment on them before we move on. I'm always a little disappointed when a game is so comfortable for one team and not the other team. I feel like frustrated with a team that, come on, make it more of a game. And that's really, of course, easier said than done for this particular team. But I did expect more. And I kind of think that Diego Costa is a very interesting signing. Now, the manager said he's going to take a little bit of time to get match fit because he's not injured, but he hasn't played for many months. He's come out of Brazilian football on a free agency. What do you think to this signing, Rob? Because Jimenez is still injured at the moment, and Kolasinac, the big new striker.
Absolutely love it.
Do you? Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Thing is absolutely what they need.
Yeah.
In terms of timing, Rob, it's not the worst. I know he's not right, but he'll get 2 or 3 weeks of work now into him. You can really get some work done in the training ground while this international break's on. He's going to bring a bit of edge to the club, what it needs. I think he'll demand more of people around him if things aren't going well, Rob. I think he'll let people know about it, which I think Wolves could do with. Yeah. I think when Jimenez comes in, it could be an interesting pair, how they work together. He's a good footballer, Diego Costa. And anyone who can do a social media clip of holding a pack of walls and smiling, and apparently, I don't know who was more scared, him or the walls of each other. Yeah. I just feel, listen, I think sometimes I feel Wolves lack a little personality, a little bit of that when they're playing against certain teams.
Yeah.
And I think he'll bring that. I think it's a great bit of business. I think it's great for the league. And we're all talking about Wolves and thinking about Wolves in a different way because this guy's doing the football club.
Absolutely right. Well said. And we look forward to seeing Wolves with a fit and aggressive and a handful that Diego Costa is playing.
Crazy Diego Costa.
Yeah.
Gotta love him.
Okay,
let's talk about a few other results this weekend, my friend.
Yep.
And it was an interesting day, certainly down at the bottom end of the table. Nottingham Forest 2, Fulham 3. So last season's championship winners versus last season's championship playoff winners. Forest get their nose ahead again, Rob, and then concede, 3 goals in 5 minutes, and just over 5 minutes, game gone. Worries for... Let's just start with Forest versus the home team. A few worries for Steve Cooper, and obviously the money he spent, the 22 players he brought in that keeps on sort of coming up every time they don't win a game.
Yeah.
A few worries for Forest, Rob, and how things are started for Steve Cooper?
Definitely. I mean, there's so many worries. I mean, oftentimes newly promoted teams, I've said this millions of times, you get a benefit, you get a boost when you start the season. You're back in the Premier League, everybody's excited, you get some results. They have not had that. On top of that, you've got a club that spent tons of money on so many new players. I have no idea what the dressing room must feel like, must look like, with people trying to settle in. Some settle in easily, some don't, let alone trying to find on the training ground a combination, a system that works for most players. I'm sure Steve Cooper does not know every detail of every player, not by a long way, to try and figure out his best team and his best system on the job, week in, week out, when they're losing games and they sit second bottom of the league table right now, is incredibly hard. But it was a decision that they took, and I know they had to bring in lots of players because the previous season, many of the players that got them promoted were players on loan that have gone away. But I just think, I think we both... Did you tip them for relegation? I thought that was too much.
I just thought they'll
You might think,
out.
And they might. If he finds something, he finds the right combination. But at the moment, I mean, they're losing against the teams around there. But Bournemouth, wasn't it, that came back and beat them? I mean, they're games where, my goodness, if they're going to get points, and I know they've come early, they haven't taken it, and they've lost big games to teams they should be getting better results.
Yeah, it's one of those where until I think things start to settle down. He gets a bit of a settled team lineup. There was no Worrell, Joe Worrell not in the starting lineup. Jesse Lingard not in the starting lineup.
He's just trying to filter through. He's trying to look at everybody.
He's trying to look at everybody and almost have games to almost like you have this game, I'll have a look at you, then I'll make a decision. It's such a tough place in the Premier League to be trialing things and not really sure where you're going. So. Some point, I think he's going to have to decide on his shape, a team, and set that down, get some rhythms and get things going. Maybe a couple of weeks on the training ground. Obviously, a few players will be off on international duty, but hopefully he'll have a core of players he can work with and maybe get things started. As you say, huge game possibly. I think it's Leicester, isn't it, on that Monday? It could be a massive game for both those teams on the Monday. Let's turn it to Fulham, Rob, because... my headline for Fulham is unfamiliar Fulham. It's not the Fulham I expected. It's not the Fulham I've known in the Premier League. Fulham looked to me, Rob, when you say Mikel Arteta's good, there's a way of playing. There's an understanding of what they're doing. There's a physicality that they've not had before. I think players come in that look like they brought and added something to the group. And Marco Silva deserves a lot of credit because I think he's been one of those managers who's been a bit maligned in the past, and people have sort of talked about what he can't do.
Dare I say it, underappreciated? Dare I say it for him?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Certainly on the borderlines of underappreciated of the week. He has Willian in for some training, takes him on. Willian has a big impact on the game. I just think Fulham look like they are adjusted to what's required in the Premier League, mate, and that's never been the case since we've seen Fulham in this league.
Yeah, I think all the credit for me Marco Silva deserves it all. I mean, if I look at that back four, it's a very similar back four that we've seen before that wasn't, quite frankly, wasn't quite good enough. I think now with the signings they've made, they are super aggressive, of course, with Alexander Mitrovic playing up front, with Pereira and Paulinho coming into the side. I mean, the team now, I think I'm missing somebody. But no, it's got a little balance, Rob. It's got a little balance of football, of organisation, of aggression, of work ethic. You know, and again, they're benefiting from the euphoria of promotion. That's really benefits them as well. But from a team that I thought would struggle to stay in the division, I mean, wow, they're like 6th place right now. They've got 3 victories, and you always want 9 or 10 to stay in the division, really. Brilliant story. You're right. Unexpected, unfamiliar. Yeah, well done. Marco Silva, wow. They look grooved as well, which is what you have to be in the Premier League. You have to know what you're doing with the system. Players have to know from day one. Forest being the other end of that, they're all over the place in terms of that stuff. But no, Fulham look like they've got a team that can stay in this division comfortably. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, bit of Fulham love for Marco Silva and his team. 3-2 win away at Forest. Big game at Goodison Park, Everton v West Ham, the David Moyes derby. Yeah. David Moyes returning back to the club he managed so well for so long.
The Frank Lampard derby as well.
His team that he started. Yeah, Frank Lampard derby. So, double derby day. Obviously Frank came through the West Ham ranks. We both played against the young Frank back in those days. Never quite realised what a great career he was going to have from there. And it was Frank who ended up on top, mate. His new striker, Neil Mopo, gets his first Premier League goal for Everton, and what a great goal it was. And I think I heard you on the broadcast and agreed with what I said. I was pretty impressed with Everton today, mate. I think there was, up until, there's certain areas in the last third where it doesn't quite knit together, don't quite get the right ball. But I thought their play was good. I thought their intensity was good. I thought the shape looked well. And the players who they've brought into their squad, Rob, have made a big difference.
Change your club.
Have made a big difference. 2 centre-backs, who reliable, who know what they're doing, experienced. Garner in midfield and Arnold in midfield. Iwobi looks like a new player. And then they've got a centre-forward who does what you want centre-forwards to do. Don't have to have brilliant games. Don't have to be all in the picture. Take something when it comes. And that's Neil Mope. Listen, has lots to say about lots of things, but has the ability to find the back of the net. I thought it was a really... not reassuring, but I thought it was a day for Frank to be really proud of what he's done. And you can start to see the progress of what's happened at the football club.
Absolutely right. And you know what? I'm really pleased for Frank Lampard because he's, the pressure that he's been on, the poor guy of coaching, Chelsea, his club and stuff like that, and the expectations there. He's then thrown into Everton, Rob. I mean, talk about into the fire when you go to that club in their situation last season. And now, as he walks around at the end, smiling face, cheering the fans. I mean, there is a great connection there from last year, from how the fans helped the team and helped the manager between Lampard and the fans. And just on that, as I'm thinking, of course, our great friend Tim Howard was in the studio, and he said, "Great." He said, a bit, is there a bit of over-celebrating going on there? Sort of back in the day when we won games, we're exhausted, we clap the fans and go off. I think the game's changed.
Celebration police, says he, Tim Howard.
Yeah,
not another one of these.
I think he's just like, he said, things are changing. I said, well, things are changing. Howard. Yeah, things are changing where I think there is more of an effort from teams and particularly managers to connect with the fans and appreciate the support. What I would say, Rob, and you go through a lot of players there, I think Tarkowski and Conor Cody have changed everything at the club. With them being there, the understanding, is really, really different from days of Holgate and Michael Keane and also Mina as well. I know some of the players are all still there. But there's one player, my friend, and this sums it up. This sums up why my underappreciated performer. You never even mentioned him when you went through the team. My underappreciated performer for this week is Demarai Gray. Now, it's not always the goal scorers that get the underappreciated, but Demarai Gray was electric from the first minute. I think he actually came out of the game later on around the 80th minute or whatever it was. But I thought in a game that was kind of tight, he's got pace. He drives inside. He had a lovely shot early on, always threatening defenders, always working up and down. And I think he's a better player. I mean, some might say, well, he is appreciated within the club. I'm sure he is. I think he's a better player than maybe a lot of people think of him, Rob. And I know that he's kind of been tossed around a little bit. But I thought Demarai Gray, particularly today, should earn that tag of underestimated performer. Closely behind him, by the way, was Frank Lampard. I was going to go with him, given how he's turned the club around slowly but surely. But I just thought Demarai Gray demanded a mention. I think he won man of the match in the stadium today. And it's just a player that, doesn't often get the headlines, but I think he's a lively, effective, really important part of Everton going forward.
Yeah, it's a good shout because obviously he was at Leicester and I think we all thought he was very talented and quite work, and he got on the edge of England, call-ups and things, and we're thinking... And then now he's almost a player, like you say, at times you forget. And, Anthony Gordon's had the headlines, Mope's come in and all that. And and under Frank, given a bit of confidence and given a bit of licence, he could, with Gordon one side, him the other, you have Mope, you have DCL, Dominic Calvert-Lewin back in the team. All of a sudden, that could be a dangerous-looking Townsend still to come in. Rondon you can throw
Dwight
in for
McNeil to come
games. Dwight McNeil, So all of a sudden that looks different. But, really good shout. Demarai Gray, this Robbie Musto's underappreciated performer of the week. But I think it was a good day for Everton. For West Ham, mate, they're still a little bit off, aren't they? They're still, I don't know, it still almost feels like a bit pre-season-y for West Ham. Okay, the season starts next week and we'll get back to our level. Physicality-wise, they're not quite where they were last year. Interesting there, and I was making a note of the players like on the bench, the Scamacas, the Cornets, who they've been brought in but not been given the start. He's at the moment going with the players he's trusted in the past. Paqueta, he talked about, and I think we talked about it on the air today. Looks like he's going to have to get used to the pace of Premier League, mate. There's no luxury number 10 positions in the Premier League, by the way.
There's no time on the ball.
Yeah, so you better get used to that. So still a little bit of integration, I think, for David Moyes in sorting this group out. In some respects, it's almost like he's got a bigger problem now because he's got more players to choose from for his squad, where in some respects last season, the team sort of picked itself.
Just a little bit of data, in fact, my friend. Seven games played, 5 losses. 5 losses in the 7. Nobody's scored fewer goals in the Premier League, Rob, in those 7 games. They've got 3. Now, I don't want to go through the list, but there are a ton of good attacking players at this football club. We're not seeing much from Jared Bowen right now. Mikel Antonio's been in and out a little bit. Scamacca, Cornet, Benrahma, Lanzini. Fornells. This is... Again, I'm not saying that there's any panic needed, but David Moyes, and he's cited 2 reasons, Rob, why they're struggling a little bit. Integrating new players, and I get that. There's a few new players in the team in different spots, and Paqueta's a good example. Thilo Kehrer, the new centre-back as well, has looked a little shaky. Could have closed down today for the goal. And then, of course, the Europa Conference League, the Thursday to Sunday. It's not ideal. But there's still rest in between. I know it's not ideal, but it's still
bigger squad as well.
Days.
Some of the players didn't play, whereas they had that last season.
So we get all that, but at some point, come on, there's a lot of attacking players, a lot of money been spent. You don't expect West Ham United to have won just 1 game from 7, being in the relegator and 18th place right now, and got a ton of credit. What a brilliant job he's done at West Ham United. Yeah. Is it simply going to turn around quickly, Rob? Is it going to settle down? They're going to move out of pre-season mode and start winning some games. I know it's been decent in the in European competition, but that's different. This is the Premier League where they got to start performing.
I think they kind of need one performance. I kind of feel like David Moyes is a one performance. He can kick it in, and then it's almost like a motion gets going, and then there's a movement, and then they build up a head of steam. Kind of feel like that's where they're at, and he just needs to find that result. Should be absolutely no panic. This guy's shown what he can do in the past. They can go on runs. They can be difficult to play against. Yeah. It's just a little bit of spark missing, Robert, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But the Bowens and the Antonios,
even Declan Rice, hasn't been quite.
Not quite himself. Him and Souček in the middle of the field. But listen, I think there's certainly plenty of credit in the bank what he's done over the last few seasons, and obviously spending money. He might have to give some of those guys a go, mate. He might have to trust them a little bit more. And, Big Scamacca scored in Europe, scored a great goal, turned and smacked one in on Thursday night. I remember watching. Maybe he's got to give him a go up top.
Yeah, I think it's got to turn around, and we expect it to turn around. But it's just an interesting kind of, it's one of the stories of the weekend. It has become one of the stories. But well done, Everton. I feel, they look a team now that isn't going to flounder around towards the bottom of the league table. Frank Lampard's done a really nice job going about his work, learning. I'm sure every single day he's in this new position as a football club like that. Well done, him. Okay, what else we got, Rob? We got a bit of Newcastle. We got a bit of Newcastle United.
To Newcastle at St James's Park, and we've got the Eddie Howe derby, my friend. Newcastle versus Bournemouth. It was his weekend of derbies. I watched this game, Rob. I'm really interested in this game because I wanted to have a good look in Newcastle because I haven't really seen that much of them this season. And it wasn't a great Newcastle day, I'll have to say, mate. It was a day where they weren't their sort of sharpness, their speed of movement, the incisive play we've seen wasn't quite there. Guimaraes didn't quite knit the stuff together that we expected. Willock made his runs but didn't get onto too many things. Isak wasn't quite happening for him.
Quiet,
yeah. And, against a very well-set-up Bournemouth team that I thought tactically and positionally were in good spots, didn't have a lot of the ball at times, knew that, but, broke with a bit of danger as well at times. And my thought, as I was watching the game, Rob, is, Newcastle have kind of earned this new respect. And this is what new respect teams have to deal with, packing it in.
Yeah.
Now Newcastle, there was a time when you got to St James' Park and say, come on, we can win this, let's go.
It becomes
I think
an open
now it's
game.
a little bit the other way. Yeah, like, hold on, this Newcastle team are dangerous to play good football. Let's sit in, let's make it difficult to play against. Yeah. And Eddie Howe's team might have to start getting used to a bit of this, mate, as the season goes on.
Yeah, that's right. And they certainly missed Alan Saint-Maximin. I mean, he said it afterwards. Eddie Howe has admitted that we needed his kind of ability to break down Bournemouth. But I think that is the story. The teams now will come and sit behind. I thought Isak was particularly quiet. I mean, he took his penalty well. On the handball, Rob, and I know, oh, blimey, for the penalty. What did you think? Again, there was a no call initially. It was Lerma, wasn't it? Lerma tried to stop a cross.
Yeah.
His hand was slightly away from his body. It wasn't spotted by the referee. VAR says, you should go and look at that. And he turns around, makes it a penalty. My thought was, gosh, like, his arm was slightly away from his body for a split second. The ball hits it from like 2 yards away. Are we at a point, and by the way, I'm absolutely happy because I'm thinking, that's not really a clear and obvious error. Now, I've said this too many times now, Rob. Now, either, like, I basically think I've got to readjust what I feel is a handball. There was one the other week where somebody came.
That's the point.
I think that's the point. I think it's so unfair, like, for asking defenders
to... The hand is any way you can see a gap between the body and the hand, and the ball hits that hand, it's a penalty, Rob. That's what... I wasn't... The moment he went, VAR, you need a look, it's a penalty. It's a penalty.
I mean, is it...
In the...
What's he meant? He's got to stick his arms to his... He's got to find a way to defend. I mean, by the way, I've got to say it again. Because we look at the letters of the rules all the time. Did he make himself his body unnaturally bigger? And blimey.
Subjective. I mean, some will say because his hand's away, then he's subjectively bigger.
I'd say it's a natural position, but anyway. But I say, I'm going to readjust. I'm readjusting. I'm recalibrating.
It's moving on. It's like, changing from one metric to another. We've got to realise it now. It's changing, and those things are going to be... I think
it's super unfair, mate. It's super unfair. Yeah. They get a free shot from 12 yards for the guy. The ball hits his hand from 2 yards away. Not particularly far away from his body. Anyway, that's something that...
Let me get back to Bournemouth, my friend, because I want to give you my underappreciated performer of the week. And he's a guy that will get no headlines in the press this week, will get no headlines, won't be talked of in any pub conversations or whatever. He's a guy named Gary O'Neill.
Oh, brilliant.
Who very quietly, under the radar, took over from Scotty Parker after Bournemouth had got beat 9. Has been unbeaten in the 3 games he's taken over, got 5 points, got an ownership group that want to sell the club. They're talking to a Las Vegas consortium. Not sure of what's happening with the ownership, not sure the group, not sure, pretty much working on a week-by-week basis, like no one else told me anything else, so I'll keep the team going. Gary O'Neill has done a sneaky good job at holding the fort while Scotty Parker was sacked and the club didn't know where to go. And if Bournemouth stay in the league, whether Gary Neal's in charge or Gary Neal's played three or four games, he will have played an integral part of it, Rob. His team are better set up. They're harder to play against than Scotty Parker's team. They've got a little bit of a threat, like the guy Tavernier on the Tavernier, is it the
Middlesbrough guy,
Middlesbrough boy? I like him. Billingham midfield was excellent.
Yeah.
Solanke's looking a little bit more dangerous. He's getting a tune out one or two players. He's got a system that it looks like Senesi, is it the new centre back?
Yeah.
Looks like he's growing into playing in the league. And I just thought Gary O'Neill's probably a guy who people won't even know what he looks like. Wouldn't even know about his career. He was at Pompey and West Ham and I think Palace and your Middlesbrough.
I think he was, yeah.
And he's come in.
Yeah.
He came in under Jonathan Woodgate. When Jonathan Woodgate came in as a first team coach. And since that time, Scott got the sack and he's taken over the football club and done a real sneaky good job, my friend. And listen, if new ownership comes in and they're not quite sure what to do, it might be better than leaving this guy in charge for a little while and just seeing how things go. So I wanted to just shout out to Gary O'Neill. All the talk was about Eddie Howe and what he'd done at Bournemouth. And, maybe Gary O'Neill's another Eddie Howe in the waiting, just needs a chance at a club like Bournemouth to build a bit of a career. But, just wanted to give him a shout as a kind of a name and a face that probably people don't even know or wouldn't even recognise. But doing just a good job, sterling job for Bournemouth in difficult times.
Well, you got to keep him for now. You got to keep him. This is great. The owner wants to sell the football club, but doesn't want any expense of bringing in, somebody else that might demand new players. He has done a brilliant job. Winning in two draws, really well organised. I think it's a great shout. And I watched his press conference, Rob, before every game that we kind of focus on. Yeah. I'm watching the managers. I want to know a bit more about what they're thinking, what they're saying. He was super relaxed, by the way. Really relaxed in his press conference. Respectful, low key, not giving it anything big time. I just thought he was honest with the journalist. I liked him. I liked how he came across. I liked what he said, and of course you've got to like what he's done. Maybe he benefited from Dominic Solanke getting fit again. I think he was injured in one of the first games for Scott Parker, but he's back up there working his socks off. Billings in behind him. No, it's a good shout, and I'm pleased that you brought it up because Bournemouth, my goodness, does anybody think they're going to stay up? But given the last three games, you can see a potential path for it. So, we'll see. There's a ton of names getting thrown out there, and Sean Dyche is getting thrown out there, and some others. But Gary O'Neill, you don't just leave it. Like keep him in. Like we have got the break, and then may look to appoint somebody. But why? Keep this thing going. The points are valuable. If you get more points, they're worth. That's worth a lot in the longer term of the season.
One more game to go, mate. Aston Villa v Southampton wasn't a cracker by any means. Two teams a little bit low in confidence. Aston Villa scrapped their way to the 3 points. I think the sight of Steven Gerrard running towards the touchline at the end in relief was one of those things. He talked before about apparently that the team talked and said he wanted his team to give Prince William a bit of a boost, obviously with the Queen's funeral and all that. I'm not sure he got quite a boost from that, but they got the 3 points. That was the most important thing. Yeah, well,
it wasn't a great advert for football with Steven Gerrard's time at Aston Villa, but it's important, isn't it? 3 points is important. Gives them a little bit of breathing space from the bottom of the league table. Gives them something to try and build on. He's got to find a way of getting more out of this team and finding I know he's very wedded to his system with those three players in midfield, and either one behind two strikers or two behind one striker. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. It's a little bit narrow. I don't think it helps their build-up play, their attacking play. But, he found a way to win the game. The goal was kind of interesting. And I'm tired now, mate. It's been a long weekend. I'm not going to get into details of the header. But there was a header from Selisic reset the... And it was that a deflection or a deliberate play? Now, it looks like a deliberate play because he did go and head the ball, but he was stretching. The ball came from the crossbar pretty quick, and we had new verbiage, new text at the start of this season to try and make that a little clearer. And the idea was for it to be a deliberate play where it resets the offside, he's got to see the ball coming. It's not going to be travelling quickly. He hasn't got to be stretching too much to make it. And I kind of thought it came pretty quickly. He didn't get a great header on it, though he was deliberately heading it. So I just thought, given the new rules, I'm like, I think it's offside. But again, it wasn't. It was allowed. They thought it was a deliberate play. It goes straight to Jacob Ramsey, who scores. So I thought there was a little bit of controversy in that, given the new kind of wording of this particular nuance in offside rule. But anyway, who cares? Well, I guess Southampton will care about it. It was they care about it, and I thought they were a little lucky. But anyway, it goes ahead. They win the game. Scrappy. He'll take it, Steven Gerrard, and he's got to work on this team to make them better.
Yeah, I think 14th now in the league. They're 13th, 14th in the league. Certainly got to improve things. It was one of those substandard days for Southampton that we get. I think it was one shot in the 90 minutes. Just they have those days under Ralph, and I think he brushes them down and they move on. So listen, mate, that's it for Premier League action this week. At a point where the Gunners, they fired themselves at the top of the table. The Foxes, they're fixed to the bottom, and cut this cost Brendan Rodgers his job. We're going to take a few days off as World Cup football comes into focus. If you're going to miss us, remember that next week we'll have some bonus content for you where Musty and I sat down with US golfer Billy Horschel and discussed his fascination for Premier League football, his love for West Ham United and the President Cup that starts this week from Charlotte in North Carolina. And then we'll be back on Sunday, October the 2nd, to review match week 9, when there's two big derbies, North London derby, Arsenal v Spurs, and Manchester derby, where Manchester City host Man United. But for now, I'm Earl, he's Musty, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.